one important line in see it over here. Says I'm speaking as an individual, not for IEEE. This is a legal statement from IEEE. Okay, so we are not responsible for the content. Okay, now let's go. A few days ago, I was looking at the CNN news and saw this quote from our President Lincoln. And he said many years ago that let people know the facts and the country will be safe. And this is on the wall inside the Chicago Tribune in downtown building. And so here are the facts we are talking about. What is a fact? In science, first thing, can you prove it? That means we call it in science called hypothesis testing. You test the hypothesis. Is that true or not? And the second question is that always true? If you see once, you don't see next time. That's not a fact. So it must be repeatable and must be consistent. And also, if you know it, how, but you need to know why. You know how to explain it. What's the mechanism? Then you know the whole story. So with this, that becomes a fact. Otherwise, it's still a hypothesis and it's still opinion. Okay. So let's go through the outline for today. I'm going to first give you some history of the issues and what are the key concepts. We're always talking about radiation and all that. So what's the main thing you have to really understand? Then we'll go through some research, standard regulation, and risk communication and some conclusions. I'll leave enough time for you to ask questions. But this is really a global issue. And in terms of the RF sources, or the years that, during World War II, everybody tried to kill each other. But after the war, everybody wanted peace, wanted to be safe. And the first group looking into this problem was the American Army, the Tri-Service, American Army, Navy, and Air Force. And they use a very huge radar like that. And people, the military personnel in the nearby, and with big radar going by, is that really safe for people? So the American, the Tri-Service initiated a 10-year research studying the effects of radar and see what's, the level of can cause problems. And after that, in the 60s, 70s, the citizens start to worry about that too, because you have many big radar and radio and the TV broadcasting antenna nearby, and if you're near the antenna, is that safe for you to be so close? And later on in the 70s, a micro oven come into the house, and that was about at least 500 watts to 1,000 watts, cooking the food in there, and you have little babies, kids running around in the kitchen. The woman was pregnant, babies inside. And is that safe for the woman to be in the kitchen with a big microwave turned on like that? And other people ask the question, can you eat the food? Is it radiated food? Can I eat it? That was some naive question was asked in the early 70s. So, but now it's all gone. Don't ask about that. But this is a small picture here showing the police using a radar gun looking for the traffic violation. And so there's a problem with some of the male police. They have testicular cancer. They sue the radar company because they say the radar gun caused their testicular cancer. Because why? When they have no car going by, they put the gun between the legs, eating donuts or drinking coffee. And some of the male officers got testicular cancer. So they sued the radar company. But of course there was no evidence for that. The cases are dismissed. And now later on we're talking about primarily for today, since Motorola invented the cell phone, and in the start of the 90s it really took off. It's about, anybody here does not have a cell phone with you? No, everybody has a cell phone. You don't use cell phone? You do. You have one there. Okay. Everybody has one. In China, I've seen people even put two, there are several phones in one person. So it's everybody using a cell phone. And now you see more and more this structure here called base station. All over the buildings and on the tower. And so what's that? Is that going to cause me cancer or health problems? And so the mobile phones, the base stations, and everybody has no Wi-Fi at home. Everybody has a Wi-Fi at home. Your router, your modem, all over the place. You use Wi-Fi in the whole house, right? So you have, of course, we have this cordless phones in your house. Everybody love it. And another thing called the smart meters. How many people have smart meters in your backyard? I think many people have. The smart meters is for the PG, the electrical and gas company. to monitor how much electricity you use. They use a radio frequency signal for telling the headquarters. And people worry about that. And RFID. And the newest one is the wireless power transmission. There are many small ones for cell phone charging is coming up. And the really is applied already is to charge the car. It's thousands of watts power to charge the car by this wireless power transmission. So all these things cause people to concern. Is that safe for us to be in this electromagnetic field environment? So now what is the common understanding? Because people watch TV and read newspaper, and many are looking on the internet and see all kinds of information all over. And so, well, people think microwave radio frequency radiation is dangerous, and we don't really know enough about its effects. Many reports show that so-called non-thermal effects and can cause cancer and many other diseases. The standards are not protective, so we need a precautionary measure to be safe than sorry. So how many of you agree with this? Pretty much, right? So anybody don't agree with this? I see at least some people say raise the hands. Yes, indeed. Even I went to Motorola, I was teaching in Beijing in several sites, and I asked the engineer there, 50% of Motorola people say, you think cell phones are dangerous? 50% will raise their hand. I said, how about a base station? It's almost 100% say base station is dangerous. Well, if you are like that, and you have the same understanding like this is the time you come to here to listen to this. It's a good show to listen to this. Okay, this is a slide I borrowed from WHO. And they used in a meeting in October 2010. And to show on the left side is what really is the public health in terms of problems. And they said the EMF, the electromagnetic field, should be the lowest. Then the next one should be X-ray, and radon, and ultraviolet. But in real public concern, it's just opposite, the other direction. And they think the ultraviolet, many people, I came from Motorola, I used to work in Motorola, I live in Florida. Many people go to the beach, enjoy the sunshine, all that. It's a lot of ultraviolet. Radiation, people don't care. And you know what is radon? Radon, in California, we don't have that problem. If you go to the Midwest in the basement, there's radons in the basement, you measure it, it's a serious problem. People don't really worry about that. Of course, you go to X-ray, dental office, and the hospital, people, yeah, that's getting dangerous. Oh God, the EMF is dangerous. So that's usually what people think. But that's incorrect. Okay, so anything you look at, you must look for the roots of the problem. Engineers like solve question. What is the root of the problem? And in this root of the problem I've been teaching for some time is the terminology. We always say 电磁辐射, I was saying earlier for that Chinese translation, and in English radiation. And people hear radiation, it's like you are hearing cancer. Well, it must be dangerous. You're not going to have a good cancer. Always bad. So when you say radiation, and you said this is dangerous, but there are two different kinds. The radiation we're talking about. Okay. This radiation, now this signs, unfortunately, it's about the same signs. The warning sign is always triangle, always with yellow. But the content inside here is different. This is with the three little thing here. This is for nuclear radiation. This is antenna here. So they are really very different, but people don't realize that, and usually think about radiation. The first thing you remember, the Japanese got the 2 bombs during the World War II. And you see this nuclear power plant accident. You have the 3 Mile Island, United States, the Chernobyl in Russia, and the Fukushima in Japan a few years, not too long ago. And every time you go to the dentist and you take an X-ray, you have to put on this heavy jacket or apron to cover your body. And you go to, people have cancer, they go to the radiation department for radiation therapy. All these are the nuclear radiation. We are all afraid of that. And you see the people mixing that two together. And you see here, 手机辐射. It's about using the same sign as that sign. And here is the same one, saying this is a cell phone with this label. And to say, must know about cell phone radiation. So this terminology, radiation, is really mixing people up. People think radiation, electromagnetic radiation, 电磁辐射. must be dangerous. That's what the problem of all these concerns and all this scare. And so that's why I use this term, and not only me, we as IEEE and also WHO, FCC, all the documents, we avoid this term radiation. So we said radio frequency exposure or exposed to RF energy, RF fields. And we don't say RF radiation. Only the activists would do that. They always say radiation can scare you so you can buy their products or believe their stories. So this is fundamental physics. Okay, when you have biology, you must base on physics, based on chemistry, and you have a biological process. And here's the physics of this spectrum from low frequency to very high frequency. And the wavelength is opposite the long wavelengths and the short wavelengths. So here's all different applications in life. And you come to here, you can see it's visible light. You can see light because you see all the spectrum. And here's the main thing is here in this division at the ultraviolet band C. And this is relating to the photon energy of the wave. Photon energy is related to the frequency. And the higher the frequency, the higher electron volts in the photon. And when you go to 10 electron volt, above the ultraviolet band C, become ionizing. It's called ionizing radiation, nuclear radiation. Like X-ray, gamma ray, and all this are in this group. Or ultraviolet, you get skin cancer because of too much sunshine is because of this. We know for sure they're going to have problems. And everything under that is called non-ionizing radiation. So here we're talking about radio frequency, microwave frequency, below the visible light. The photon energy is millions of times below that, is like millions of times smaller than that. And this is called non-ionizing we're talking about. So don't mix the two together. So in terms of these descriptions here, ionizing radiation have sufficient energy to change the chemical bonds like DNA. You can hit the DNA, can break the bonds, and that will cause cancer, change the genetics information, and that can cause problems, and also have cumulative exposure. That's why every time you go to a dental office, the dentists don't stay in there to be with you. Before they push the button, they go outside. They go outside, and then they come in. Because that one is cumulative, because of ionizing radiation. But here we're talking about non-ionizing radiation, including radio frequency, microwave, and it's low energy, millions of times in photon energy, insufficient to cause effects like above. And only confirmed so far if you have limits above the wireless communication limits, and it's a very high level, you have heating effects, such as used in microwave oven, is heating. Definitely we know that's true. But for wireless communication, the power you're using is always so low, you don't have enough heating. So that's the confirmed stuff. And so also there's no chronic or cumulative effect. If it's due to heating, you go under the sun, it's getting hot. While you come into the inside of the house, under the shade, under the tree, and you'll be cool off again. You don't continue to heat build up and you find out it get boiled. No, it's not going to happen like that. So this is not a cumulative effect like you're talking about up here in the ionizing radiation. So this is very, very fundamental. If you can tell the difference between the two, then you understand you should not do the whole frequency band. So okay, if we have concerns, what do you do with concerns? Well, that's what universities or research labs are for. You do scientific research. You don't understand it, you study it. Then you want to try to understand it. Okay, you do all kinds of research. And then what do you do? After you do research, you write it up. You put in the paper for publication. Hopefully somebody will understand it or criticize you as, oh, this bunch of bullshit. And then some people, oh, that's great. So then finally you become build up the database in the library, and now it's all electronically. And finally, the standard group, like the IEEE group, standard setting group, or other group I'll tell you later, and we come up with a consensus standard from the expert groups. Then after we have standards, the government will adopt its regulations. So all these things is a continual process, and you continue to have new scientific research, we continue to update our standards and continue to improve our standard in various countries. So currently there's a database, since you all have this slide, so you can go to this website, you can find this IEEE EMF database, And this has the biological effect studies for about 70 years since World War II. And you have currently 6,000 some entries, and just on the RF exposure, about 3,600 papers in there. I counted this morning. So you can find in there with all the titles in that database. So how do you do the studies? So this is basically 4 ways of doing studies on this type of effects. First you do is epidemiological study. This you use a large group of people, can be thousands of people, to do the studies, large human population. But everyone has an advantage and disadvantage. And usually this kind of a large population has a problem, so-called bias, a recall bias, selection bias, all kinds of confounding factors can be in the large study. And the next one, you can have people going to the lab to do some human study in the lab, to do some testing, but only usually relate to only short term. You cannot keep thousands of people in the lab to do the study for a long time. So that's some disadvantage of that. Usually the healthy volunteer to come to the human study. The other one is animal studies, most useful one, and all the cancer studies using mice, rats, and they can have large population. You can study several generations and all that. So it's easy to do that using for exposure onto RF. But the problem is they have different metabolism, different physiology, different lifespan, and extrapolation to humans also can be a problem. The last one is the least expensive, and it's easy to do. Use the cell cultures to do very fast, especially for mechanism studies, and very easy to do. But the trouble is, how do you go from cell culture to animal to human? It's a big step. I don't have time to explain some of the questions here, but this is really a problem. So in terms of the weighting, the WHO or the International Agency on Research on Cancer, when they evaluate all the different studies, they put the heaviest weight on the epidemiology study. The least one is on the in vitro studies in this order. Okay, so in terms of we are worried about cell phone, worried about base stations, and they have the last 15, 20 years has been a lot of studies. So we break into these 4 different categories, including engineering studies. There are almost 3,000 papers in there just on this subject, whether RF wireless communication is safe for people or not. So this is the current situation. So let's see what WHO say about this database. And there are sentences you can find in this website, WHO. And here, scientific knowledge in this area is more extensive than most chemicals now. And the current evidence does not confirm the existence of any health consequence from exposure to low-level electromagnetic field. What do you mean by low-level electromagnetic field? That means that below the current international exposure guidelines. Okay, I will talk about that guidelines later. Okay, now, even with WHO said so clearly, why are we so many people so concerned about this? Because of this. This is from my friend John Osipchuk, wrote in the paper in 2004, and he separated into 4, 5 different groups of this literature of the science. And science is like everything else. You buy a house, buy a watch. You can buy $100 million watch or buy a $2 watch. I suppose also tell you the time. You go to any class, you have some students get A's, some students get B's, some students get C's, some will flunk out. So the same thing. On all this stuff you see, and they have different qualities. The first one is really confirmed established science, and that's so-called facts. And there's no dispute on that. Everybody to do it, and you will get the same thing. After many tests, will give you the same thing. It's a confirmed established science. Then after that, I have unconfirmed report, maybe useful, it's a little bit question mark, and it says it contradicts with A. Well, is it really true? Well, we don't know. We cannot disprove it. So there are some with a clear flaws and artifacts in a study. Something wrong with the study, but it still get published. It's peer review and all that, still get published. And there are some real bad papers get published in the peer reviewed literature, and there's some even not even peer review, maybe just appear in the newspaper, not even reviewed by anyone, any expert, or in the any magazine, site here, site there, and all this thing going all over the place. So all these things we consider are just opinions, still forming, is not really proven. Until really proved, they go to that. So this is a controversy nowadays. It's between the people who believe this and people believe this, and the controversy between the two. And of course, you're talking about different things because your understanding are different, and of course, there's a fighting and they are controversy. So this Herman Schwang, he's the father of bioengineering in the United States. Used to be at the University of Pennsylvania. He said, a good science is never outdated. It's a go, it's a go. If you smash it, you melt it, you pound on it, whatever, it still go. All right. If it's a fake gold, you burn it, it will become ashes. So this is what this top one is what we really look home into as a fact in science. So, and here we pointed out two complexities. One is biological complexity, and I show you the animals and the stuff I have worked on during my research time at the University of Washington and City of Hope. And they use different animals. And when you use animals, you have a problem with the different species, from frogs all the way to monkey to human. And what kind of strain of animals, many different strains, even the same mice or rats, and what sex or what age. And you can have different results. And how you extrapolate animal to humans. And if you use cell cultures, you have different shapes of the cell culture. You can have mono-layer cell suspensions, or isolated tissues. And how do you extrapolate from cells into animals and to humans? So this is the biological complex questions in the biological science departments. Then we have an electromagnetic energy department, electrical engineering group, and it's the electrical magnetic engineers have to come up with exposure systems. This exposure system I used in my study time is the waveguide to expose nerves and muscles in the temperature control waveguide. Expose animals like the guinea pig to study the hearing effect in a circular waveguide. The whole animal exposure in there for 2 years and live in there with the drinking water and all that, and the cell culture exposure in this thing. And this is like a mice condominium. There's 40 animals in one group, and they're air conditioned and all there. So exposed for 2 years. So all these exposures are very complicated engineering designs. And for example here, the two men here show the same human model, exposed to electrical field, you get heating pattern like this. You expose to magnetic field, you get a very different energy deposition pattern in the same model. So all these things are very complicated, different far field, near field, dosimetry problems like this. And there are resonance issues about the different sizes and different orientations. And these all make the difference. And the different modulation, you have a continuous wave, pulse wave, FM, TDMA, CDMA, the LTE, now coming up to 5G. All these modulations are all different. And when you do all these experiments, there are all kinds of these experimental artifacts. Really not due to the RF itself, it's due to something else. For example, if you put a metal electrode into an animal, that electrode, even very small, has been used for physiology for hundreds of years. People think there's no problem, it's more than a needle. But you put it into RF, big problem. And biologists didn't know about it. Even for EEG, people still using today for measuring effects on EEG after the cell phone exposure. You put a metal electrode on the head, it's going to cause problems. But many people are still using it even today. Okay, and also in the many of the studies, the temperature control, because you have any RF energy going, it causes temperature rise. And many people don't know enough about this, so they can come up all kinds of misinterpretation of their experimental result. So here is a cartoon showing that if you have an unbalanced researchability, either in the medical school or engineering school, you don't have a good combination of expertise to collaborating with each other, or if they both are very bad expertise, they have very difficult trouble dealing with biological complexity or engineering complexity. So what you do end up like this, you're going in circles in the ocean. So no wonder we work on this for 70 years, even today, still a controversy today. Right? So here is the one from the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It's part of the WHO. And what they do is, this organization do nothing but to classify different agents and mixtures, whatever exposures in our life, and put into different categories for carcinogen. And they have currently, up to this morning, have more than 1,000 agents they have studied. And the first one, classification 1, is called non-carcinogen. Definitely can cause cancer. And there are 120 items in there, including smoking, we know for sure. Too much sunlight exposure can cause skin cancer. And also even hot dog, hams, and people so mad at that, the meat industry very mad at this classification. So that was entered there this more than a year ago, and it's entered the known carcinogen. And number 2 is called 2A and 2B. It's probable or possible. And in Chinese we will say 可能, but in the English there are 2 different meanings. One is more possible, it's called probable. And that one has 81 in there, including red meat. You go to enjoy your good steak. Well, that's probable carcinogen according to IARC. And so the other one is a possible carcinogen. There are almost 300 of them, including we have Koreans here, or people from Sichuan. You like to eat pao cai, the pickled vegetable, and kimchi. It's 2 possible carcinogens. Or car exhaust from the car, the smoke, and it's a possible carcinogen. Or even baby powders. You know, babies, you know, very tender and very, you know, silky, and you put baby powder on the kid. That's under the possible carcinogen. A year ago, even coffee is under this category. And now this year they remove it. But the other, about half of them, they put into a big basket. Said, well, we don't know. So it's not classifiable. 500 something. But there's a unique one. It's number 4. It's probably not a carcinogen, but only one. So what is this? So this is a chemical. It will not give you cancer, but can kill you. So that was a mistake years ago. They put into this category. I will guarantee you, going forward, no more item will put into this category. Mostly will throw into this one, or unless they have enough evidence, they'll put over here. So, but IARC evaluation, they only tell you this is a hazard, but they will not tell you whether this is a risk. They don't tell you how probable you can get cancer from doing all this, eating the hot dog and all that. But it's proven, if you eat hot dog enough, you'll get cancer, of your colon cancer. So if you may have eaten so many tons of, you know, and all that in order to do that. But animal study, they did show that, okay, on humans, some of the human studies. So, but this 2B, and was in the early, in the 90s something, this ELF, the low frequency power line, magnetic field, was classified as a possible carcinogen 2B. And in 2011, the radio frequency exposure, because of the 2 studies on these human studies showing cell phone if used long enough, and probably there's an increase of brain cancer. So they put that as evidence. There's not enough evidence from animals, and there's no mechanism, so they put into this category, so possible. So that caused a lot of a big concern in this whole world. And when they announced this, every newspaper, every radio station under the sun released this news. Okay, but 3 weeks later, from the WHO EMF project office, they issued this fact sheet, 193. Whether it's because this came from the mobile phone data, they issued this fact sheet, electromagnetic field and public health on mobile phones. There is one question: are there any health effects due to mobile phone? This is what WHO said. A large number of studies have been performed over the last 2 decades, 20 years. Access with mobile phones can pose a potential health risk. To date, no adverse health effects have been established. Remember all these words. You know, established and as being across mobile phone use. And they are
must be under the pressure of all the cell phone companies.
No, this is WHO, okay? This is WHO. Okay, then let's look at real data. Now, can you cause real cancer or not? Let's look at real thing. This is human data from all many countries, from Switzerland all the way, including Taiwan, and the latest one over there is 2015 from New Zealand. On how many cancers occur in the population over the years. And this is many of like a 30-year study, and all shows no consistent increase, do not detect any correlation. If there's something, it should show up now, and no change. Okay. And let's look at the, this is a little bit old data, 2008 from the United States. And brain cancer is a very rare cancer. You see, like 1 million people, you can have about 70 people have brain cancer, out of 1 million. Okay. And so here's the blue line is how the cell phone use over the years from 1991. And this is the cancer rate over the years. You don't see really change, and actually a little bit decrease over the years. This is 2008. The newest one is 2015 from the American National Cancer Institute. Also show for women it's a decrease. For men it's about stable, about the same. So this is the latest on the United States. And so here is a hypothetical study presented at the International Agency for Research on Cancer in 2012. This is the real data from the whole world over the years. And this is hypothetical. If there's increase, even the risk ratio is 1.2 or 1.5, or risk ratio of 2, according to some of the reports, people are reporting there's a risk ratio of 2, and you should see in the real human data, should go up like this, or like this, if it's 1.5, but nothing happened like that. It just continued to oscillate about the same rate from 1979, continued to go about this. So if that's really true, it should show in the clinical data, okay, but it's not. And this is another area, it's called electrohypersensitive syndrome. It's short to be called EHS. And this is because a lot of people think they are electrohypersensitive, or they got all kinds of problems within health. And they say, well, because of the cell phone tower there, because somebody's using cell phone next door, or there's some guy's ham radio next door. They have people like that. So in France, they have a special zone for these people. And it's in the southeast area of France, and they have whole zone areas, nothing, no cell phone, no power line, and nothing. And they go over there and live in the trailer, and they even still have to sleep in the aluminum foil to try to feel safe in there. And the children go out to play, they have to ask their children to put on metallic net to go out to play. So they are very concerned about this. Okay, do we have that in the United States? Yes. There's a place called the Green Bank, West Virginia. Why that place is so good for these people? They have people going over there because they have a big, huge antenna for receiving the signal from the space to see whether there's an ET phone home or somebody from out of space. So that's in the whole area, about 100 miles square. There's no no towers, nothing. So it's a very quiet area. So the people, they feel they have a type of sensitive problem. They move to there. After they move there, they feel very good. So they say, well, it must be due to in the city, San Francisco, too many pollution from the electromagnetic pollution. So they move to that area to feel very happy to improve their health. So we have this. But this is a big problem. So WHO had a meeting in 2004 in Istanbul, Turkey, and in 2005 at the fact sheet 296 about this particular area. And they have a look at all the studies, and there's no scientific basis to link this electrohypersensitive symptom to EMF exposure. And so the WHO suggests, since it is not related to EHS, electromagnetic field, why do you call electrohypersensitivity then? It should change the name. So it should change the name to something you don't like about this environment. It should be idiopathic environmental intolerance, should be IEI, instead of EHS, because it really has nothing to do with it. So in the 2011, there's a European Union had a scientific meeting just on this particular subject. In there, they have suggested the possible explanation for this hypersensitive people is called nocebo effect. What is nocebo effect? You have heard of the term placebo effect, right? Yeah. Placebo effect is, it's in medical study, they give you some kind of pill. It's actually just a vitamin. You think it's good for your cancer. After you take it, you feel good. So that's called placebo effect. That is just opposite from the placebo effect called nocebo effect. That means you believe something can harm you, it will. If you someone power comes up, God, I start feeling bad, stomach grinding or my tooth hurt. It must be due to that. So you believe that can be, it will cause the problem. So it's called nocebo effect. So the latest study I found is 2015 from Holland, Netherlands, and they have investigated about almost 6,000 electrohypersensitive people, the patients, and their conclusion is none of the model, the exposure source was related to the occurrence of the symptoms. Even so many people continue study, and they cannot find a correlation between the disease and the study. So with so many reports, I'll just give you one example. This is from the Swedish Safety Authority. It's 2015 reports about brain cancer we talked about. And it's in there, they summarize, it's now convincing in a mobile phone use to the occurrence of the glioma, that's the brain cancer, or other tumors of the head region among adults. How about for children and the young people? Also does not indicate any increased risk according to the the data from the clinic. And the other one about the electrohypersensitivity, they have not provided any to provide evidence that exposure to this electromagnetic is a causal factor. And several studies have indicated it's due to the nocebo effect. That means you can expect something can happen, it will happen. It's harmful. And the last one is about people so concerned about the transmitter and from the base stations and about the children study, cancer and all that, does not indicate any health risk for the far field exposure such as base station or radio or TV transmitter. There's no new evidence indicating a causal link exposure from the far field exposure such as mobile phone base station or wireless local networks in schools or at home. So this is from the 2015 and 2016. The same authority issued another new report, and we confirmed the results in the 2015 report. And this is the one that came out at the end of last year from Japan. It summarized almost 20 years research sponsored by the government, the Ministry of International Affairs Communication, MIC. Almost 20-year study, this is what their result. The result of these studies consistently show no hazardous effects of the RF EMF with exposure levels of internationally accepted guidelines. And here is very important. Emphasize what I showed you earlier, the boat going in circles. Is that the study in this program did not reproduce any of the previously studied suggesting existing health effects when the experiments were carefully performed with the collaboration of biological medicine and the engineering to improve the reliability of the experiments. So this is very important, learning from the Japanese. And as I said earlier, you've got to have the people know about the biological complexity and the engineering complexity to collaborate to come up the valid scientific conclusion for the studies. So here I have collected within the IEEE. There's a website here. There's one area called expert reviews, and from 2010 to 2008, 7.5 years now. And there are 69 full citations in there from various expert groups and government agencies to show what's their studies all in detail. And you can go there to look for yourself. But if you're tired of looking at that, this is a summary of all that. If the adverse health effect had not been confirmed for RF exposure, they comply with contemporary science-based safety guidelines such as developed by this ICNIRP and IEEE. I'll tell you later about these two different standards. So now we go, after research, now we go to the next step, talk about standards. So basically there are three kinds of standards. One is called exposure standards for human exposure. So human is the subject, we have all kinds of wireless, the RF exposures. What is the exposure level we can take? So they have usually two tiers. One is for general public level, and it's one for people working in the environment like a company, and for in the controlled environment or the military, and that's a so-called occupational exposure. The other one is for the called assessment standard for radiating sources, such as micro oven, cell phones, or different RF imaging devices. How do we know it's within compliance? So there's a compliance method or standards for measurement or computation. You can to test your devices before you can get approval in these countries by FCC, so you can sell it in the market. The last one I will not talk further, just to mention here, is called interference standards, such in medical devices. If you have a person in the intensive care unit, you have a guy used to have a GSM phone, you make a phone call there and causing all this interference to the IV pump, you're going to kill the patient. So that's a very big problem. So they have interference standards on that for medical, but I will not talk about that. I'll just talk about this too here. So who has the right to set the standards? The first group is called the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. And this is their logo. They are part of the endorsed by WHO. And they have 14 members from they are appointed experts from government or universities. And they don't have any industrial representatives, such as one of the persons concerned or industry maybe influence them. They don't have that in that group. Okay. And the second group is IEEE group. And this is the group I'm chairing. And so we have a large committee open to anybody. Anyone can come to our committee. It's an open committee. And currently we have 130 members from 26 countries, and to join our meeting, we have 2 meetings every year. Our next meeting in August in Washington, D.C. And everything is open consensus process, and everybody vote on it, and have to be at least 75% consensus before it can become a IEEE standard. So how about the assessment center? It's a group called the IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission. This is an international group, and it's about 20,000 people from various groups participate in that one. And the other one is from IEEE, called from our group is another technical committee, 34. And this is from IEEE's largest professional society, and with members more than 160 countries. So this is 2 organizations set the standards for that. Since I'm from this committee, and this is ISIS, International Committee Electromagnetic Safety, it's called Standard Coordinating Committee 39, under the IEEE Standard Association Standards Board. And our mission is to promote safe use of electromagnetic energy. Down below we have 2 TCs, Technical Committee 95, exposure standards, 7 subcommittees, and to take care of various areas of this exposure standards, and 34 on the product standard, subcommittee 1 and 2 to deal with the experimental or numerical standards. So this is the structure of our committee. So a brief history of our exposure standards. And I mentioned earlier the tri-service military groups, after their research in the 1960s, they set the United States American Standard Institute set up a committee, it was chartered. And 60 years later, it came out the first standard, safety standard, C95.1 in 1966. It's a very simple standard, 1 level and a flat over frequency band based on a simple heating method based on the military research from the before the 1960s. And it continued to evolve over the years. In 1982, it became frequency dependent, including the symmetry, because we know more about the symmetry at that time. So until now, this is 2006, this is the one I led to revise this one, and this is still the current version of the IEEE standard. And 2014, we came up with a standard for NATO countries to become the military standard, and they have NATO standard, 28 countries adopted this standard in 2015. So that's a brief history of our group. And this is the cover page of our 2005 standard, and the 250 pages of that. This is the military standard 2014 we produced for the NATO. So how do you set the standards? So first we list all the different things. What can possibly happen if you're exposed to RF? From very high intensity, definitely get shocks and burns. That's no question about it. And it can have localized heating effect, surface heating effect, whole body heating effect. Then you can hear microwave pulses. I don't have time today to talk about it. It's very interesting. You can hear microwave pulses. How can you hear that? I spend a lot of time on that. Yeah. If someday you guys are interested, I can come talk about that. But in other words, a whole bunch of the so-called low-level effects, very small power. People say they're effects. Okay, so here we draw a line here. So we're going to protect effects like this. We think they are not good for health. And then here, we don't think hearing is not a problem. And the low-level effects, we have this statement in our 2005 standard. For low-level effects, has been established. The word established. At that time it was 50 years. Now it's 60 years. Now it's 70. And it's not established. Now some people report they are effects, but you try to repeat it, it's not repeatable. There's no known mechanism can cause that problem. And if you report something happened, but you cannot repeat it, there's no mechanism to explain it, there's no meaningful dose-response relationship, so it still remains speculative. Is that really true? So it's really inappropriate for standard setting. We can only set our standard based on something we know for sure can cause problems. And we reviewed this statement in 2011, we continue to affirm this position. And so in terms of the safety, and we also have the safety factors in there, we know animals, from rats to monkeys, exposed to whole body specific absorption rate, that's a unit we call it, over 4 watts per kilogram, cause animals to stop eating. And that's very important, because even they are hungry, they don't try to do something to get the food, and we consider that's not good. So 4 watts per kilogram is established at that time. We make that as 10 times lower for the for the occupational exposure for upper limit, and another 50, another 5 is 50 times total, 0.08 for the lower tier for the general public exposure limit. So this is based on animal extrapolated to humans. And for localized heating, we have in the 2005 standard based on the University of Washington study on the cataract in rabbits. And if you go up to 100 watts per kilogram in the eyeball, you can cause cataract. So we divide that by 10 for the upper tier for occupational, 10 watts. And it's 2 watts per kilogram for lower tier for general public. So the cell phones and all that, you must be below 2 watts per kilogram to be approved by the FCC. But actually, in the United States, even more stringent because their current FCC is still following the old IEEE standards, 1.6 watts per kilogram. So this is roughly, we have the safety factor in there. And this is one slide to show you in terms of measurements. And we have IEEE GC34 came out 15.8 standard published in 2005, revised in 2013, covered the frequency range from 0.3 to 6 gigahertz. Here showing you a picture of the man, so right side of the face, left side of the face, and here's the body area. You can put a cell phone on the left and the right side and put the electrical field probe in there to look for the maximum absorption area to find out whether the maximum is lower than the FCC limit. So if you show that all the data to FCC approve it, you can put it on the market. So this is established by IEEE now is try to combine it with IEC standard, make it into a dual logo standard. So in the whole world, it's the same standard for this kind of compliance testing.
Yeah.
And this is currently our active standards, and they have expiration still good until 2018, something 2020. But all these standards, every 10 years, we have to renew it or revise it and all that, continue to update that. So we're currently updating this C95.1 now because it's going to expire very soon. So this is our main activity of our committees to do this. And there's good news, and you have this website here, and all this standard used to be, if you buy individual one, cost you almost $200 years ago. But now, thanks to the United States, Navy, Air Force, and Army, they pay for you already. So you just go out to the website, all these things are free. You can all freely download it, okay, because they already pay for it. Okay, now we talk about the standards, we go to regulations. Regulations adopted by the governments. So here are two different philosophies of protection. One is like we said already all along. Are we talking about protect against established adverse health effect? We're talking about protect against possible biological effects. So before we talk about that, let's see some definition. This is an IEEE standard. We have that. What is a biological effect? Anything is a biological effect. As long as you are living, you can hear me, you can see me, you can breathe, you can feel the health, warmth. Everything is a biological effect. So it can be good, can be bad. So it can be beneficial. That's a biological effect. Okay. What's a possible biological effect? Well, some people reported there's something there, but it's not confirmed yet. So maybe possible until it becomes established. And here we talk about established adverse health effect. In our standard also we say this is harmful changes. And these changes, how do we become established? It's also independently by different laboratory, and it's a consensus among the scientific community. Say, yeah, under this condition, something can really happen like that. So this is established, and also you know the mechanism. You know why it's causing the effect. You can explain it, and this is called established. Okay. So here we have our two international standards, IEEE and the ICNIRP. And in our very beginning, the scope and purpose of the two standards, we say almost the same thing. So this purpose of this standard is to protect against established adverse health effect human health. Okay, this ICNIRP endorsed by WHO, and theirs is protect against known adverse health effects. So this is all talking about facts. We know they are not good for us, we need to protect against it. But there are other interest organizations, such as this one, very similar name as IEEE, but this is ICEMS, International Commission, not Committee, and it's for electromagnetic safety. They are promoting precautionary principle. And this is another group called bioinitiative group. They cause a lot of concern among people. and they have a version 1 and version 2. Version 2 study published in 2012, but version 1 came out in 2007. And here, in this latest one, 2012, and they have a very big, about 2 inches of collection of evidence to show there are bad effects, all kinds of health effects from all over the world, different labs, and they collect all these possible effects. So this, the chief leader of this, the non-scientist, the lady, she had a conclusion summary, recommended the safety level 0.3 nanowatt per square centimeter. I don't know how many of you here, engineers, understand what a nanowatt means. That's a very, 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 very small little energy. If you go to any home or anybody with cell phone, you go way exceed the limit. You can never use the limit for anything. If you have to implement it as a precautionary limit, you have to shut down every wireless communication. All the public safety, all the radio towers, the TV towers, all have to be shut down. We have to go back to the 19th century, essentially. So these are the people who don't understand the subject, but they are making the conclusion without contacting the other people in that group. That group of people mostly are biologists and epidemiologists. There are very few engineers in that group. Most of the people in that group is, yeah, my experiment showed that. Well, your experiment is not repeatable. Okay, so this is a group, they have this recommendation. But in the world, we have real situation from a large country. This is called Russia. Used to be called Soviet Union. Okay, and recently there's a paper written by Ripacholi. He used to work for WHO. The second author, Gugoyev, is from Russia, the chairman of the Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection Committee in Russia. And they wrote a joint paper. They tried to find what is the scientific basis for the Soviet and the Russian radio frequency standard for the general public, and published in this Bioelectromagnetic Journal in 2012. In there, I give you 2 quotes here. The general approach to public health protection and setting exposure limit by the previous Soviet and current Russian committee is that people should not have to compensate for any effects produced by RF exposure, even though they are not shown to be adverse to health, pathological. So anything they report, somebody reports something can be, well, they said they want to protect against it, even it's not have to be adverse effects. So exposure limits are then set do not cause any possible biological consequence among the population, regardless of age or gender. So this was written in that paper. You can find it. So this is a very important difference from the approach we use in IEEE and ICNIRP. And we use established adverse health effect, and here you just any effects, they don't want to see it. So of course there's a big difference among the different exposure limits. So here's a map of the whole world in terms of localized for the portable devices such as your cell phone, your two-way radios, your portable laptops, and anything wearable in your body. And this is the two-color distinguish the two different adoptions. The one is the green one. That's adopted the ICNIRP using the 2 watts per kilogram over average over 10 gram as limit. The 10 watts per kilogram for the occupational exposure limit for the two-way radios and professional use. So that's the adopting that. The other is the yellow one, mainly follow the FCC. And because FCC continued to use the 1991 IEEE standard, they use the 1.6 limit as average over 1 gram. For the two-way radios, 8 watts per kilogram, average over 1 gram. So it's neighbor, Canada, definitely follow American Big Brother. And some, even Cuba was following America, and Panama, Bolivia, and Iran, and Iraq, and Vietnam, Korea, they follow that. And recently, India switched in 2012, and they want to follow America. They say, well, Americans are more conservative. So they dropped their standard to follow that. So it caused a lot of trouble in the market. And we'd like to look at the next one. This is for exposure limit for the antenna site, for the base stations. And this is GSMA has a website. You go to that website, you can click on that with this also kind of greenish color. Every country in the world, you click on it, will tell you what regulation they use. I just quickly, for 124 countries or territories, pretty much follow the ICNIRP guideline because the WHO encouraged them to do so. And they are about 11 follow the FCCs, use the old IEEE standard, National Council Radiation Protection Standard, and those are the names over there. The main thing I want you to see is over here. The last group, they are below the current IEEE, also ICNIRP standard. The two groups of countries here. The first is the Soviet influence, including China here, and Poland, and this, Bulgaria, they follow this system because they are used to be buddies within with the Soviet Union. And the next group is the people, the countries of Belgium, Chile, Greece, Italy, Israel, Liechtenstein, Switzerland even. And they are the ones apply the precautionary principle. We want to be lower, to be more safer, according to the political pressure from the country. So this is mainly roughly the whole world like that. So here is actually IEEE as a standard developing group. We really want to see the world harmonization. You don't want to see two suns in the sky. We had many suns before, but they shut down. But we have only one. So we want one sun in the sky. And here we have too many standards. We don't know which one is correct, and the cause concern, and are you right or he's right? So we need to really try to push for the harmonization. And currently, we have IEEE and ICNIRP. We have some issues different, but we will continue to work on the harmonization. But in terms of measurement, because they are the standards they are developing always together, they come up this so-called the dual logo standard. So we have this measurement for the cell phone or two-way radios on the ear, on the body. They are very much harmonized for the whole world. So we continue to harmonize the safety exposure standard, and this is really pushed by WHO, and also is a desire for the IEEE and ICNIRP to harmonize in the future standards. So the last one is about one topic on the communication. And so here is that we have a very different characteristic between science and media. And we are, in science, we usually looking for consensus, but media usually looking for conflicts. And science, we try to look for truth, and media, every day have news. And so we have general laws, they have only stories. So, but every day they have continued. That's the same. So the problem with the media communication is, they are on this EME, electromagnetic energy issues, often are not verified and reviewed by real experts. So many statements came from so-called experts. Oh, it looks like they are experts, but they are so-called. And many of the reporting are the spotlight reporting. It's not looking for weight of evidence, looking for the whole thing. They're just looking at one thing. Look at that! Whoa, that's dangerous. So that's what the problem is there. And also in media, I talked with several reporters, there's a so-called sensationalism. They need to have a hook in the story. If you turn the story, editor, to your general editor, this is my story, look at what is hook in the story? Nothing. It's like drinking plain water, throw away. You gotta have something, oh God, this is exciting. So that's the news, the article get into the newspaper or into the news. So that's why I always look for the hook. So misinformation also goes all over the world very quick. I don't have time to give you some examples of that. It will continue propagating, cited by different journals and the magazines all over. And then if you have any correction, they don't really make it to the news. You have a bad ones on the cover page, the corrected news will page 35 at the corner, and nobody will notice that. So general public, unfortunately, even I think you guys too, you acquire your knowledge from the media. You read the newspaper, you watch TV or internet. You don't read the scientific journals like IEEE transaction or bioelectromagnetics. So that's the problem. So here we have a conclusion here. Scientists should have an overall responsibility to ensure their findings must be robust before publication. But because now everybody wants to publish, otherwise you get fired, you don't get promotion. So always some garbage you get published all over. So then if you go to the media, then it's going to mislead the media and then mislead the public. So here we can see the consequence of that. In Europe, they do something called Eurobarometer. They do it every few years. And this is the latest one from 2010. There's one question in there. How concerned are you about the 46% are concerned? And the highest in Greece, 81% concerned. The least country and least concerned is Denmark. Only 16% of people concerned. This would be vary from 16 to 81 over this little area called Europe. And why is it different? Well, the thing is this, that's the reason. And this country is here because they have stricter precautionary principle limits, lower limits. Italy, very low limits. Greece apply 80% of the ICNIRP limits, so they all drop the limits. So when they drop the limit, people say, wow, our country dropped the limit. Must be something wrong there. So they are more concerned. So the purpose trying to drop the limit to protect the people is not helping people. It makes them worry more because they drop it. And also they have a strong precautionary advice from the government. You know, they always constantly warn their people. And why these people don't really worry that much because they follow the ICNIRP guideline, they have a good compliance program, they have good communication among these countries. So that's the difference. So it's a risk communication is important. And I was in India last year talking about this issue. Of course, you know, everybody all over the world, everybody making phone calls, playing on the cell phone, and many base stations, people are so worried about it. And let's look at the real exposure. What are we really worried about? Okay, we'll mention about what's the power we're talking about. If you know all your cell phone, the engineers, electrical engineers are very smart people. They come up with something is called adaptive power control. What is this? That means if I talk to you, I don't have to yell. I talk to you, I have to talk very loud. Because you cannot hear me, I have to talk louder. That's called adaptive power control. So when you are in a good signal area, you have a little power, you can communicate with cell phones, base station. Unless you are very far away or in the basement, your cell phone tries very hard to talk with the base station. That's when you go to here, 22 some dBm. That's maximum power from your cell phone for PCS is 125 milliwatt. What's a milliwatt? How many watts is that? At least 20, 30, 40, 50 watts. And human body emitting 60 watts on the average, 60 watts power. And here's the 0.125 watts, 125 milliwatts, maximum power. You have to test it in the model I showed you earlier. It must below the FCC. But in the real case, this is from a 2009 old paper. And you see this the different rural area, urban area. This is the power that you use by the cell phone. The peak usage here is minus 10 dBm. It's 30 dB. That means 1,000 times below the maximum power. It's only 0.1 milliwatt there. You're talking about 0.1 milliwatt. That's very small power you're talking about, and that's enough to communicate. That's how good we are in terms of electrical engineering. You go to JPL, you send the signal, the rocket, the satellite into Mars, and send a big pictures back. How did that picture come back? By electromagnetic wave. Very small little power can do a lot of things. That's what is so effective at. Do you have to worry about 0.1 milliwatt? If you worry about that, don't go into the sun. It's too big a power. And the same thing for this outside base stations. This is an old paper, 2007, and showing 5 different cases, and showing how many percent of the ICNRP limit. And here's the largest number is 9.22. What is it? Baby monitor. Why so high? Because you are 20 centimeters away from that you make the measurement. And the other one is very high, 3.93%. Now, still very small percentage of the limit is from your wireless phone in your home. Because you're measuring 20 centimeters away from that. The other one is also the wireless lane, the router is small. But if you look at outside, the base station, where people live, 0.01%. The TV and radio station, 0.06%, all small little numbers. Okay, if you really worry about it, you should worry about your wireless phone in your home.
So what's the distance you measure for the base station?
26.
This is all people where people live, not right next to the antenna. Of course, right next to the antenna, it will be very high. So let's talk about where people exposed in general.
So like the school, the
Yeah.
parents, they against the radio
Right.
tower,
The
which is
where
across
the
the street.
people, yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, even that, everything is very distantly related. So for example, here, you're asking, now if you live here, you have an antenna right on your roof. Is that safe to live here? Also here is from Argentina. I went to Argentina last year, and they showed me this huge, and I took this picture, huge antenna on the roof. And here people live here, their offices, they are very concerned. So they have a university, a local university there went to make a measurement Are there any exposure from there? Of course not, because the energy going this way, they don't go design, it's not like a light to go this way, designed to go that way, it doesn't go this way to waste energy. The same thing for this, it's going that way. So it doesn't go that way. So you measure here, it's nothing. And same thing here, the energy, the green area is 10% exposure limit, and the white area is 1% of the exposure limit. So if you are here, have a desk here, your bedroom here, it's well below the limit. So that's what he said, but you don't go up there. If you people have to go up there to do some maintenance there, to paint or something, that's where you need the control area. Only occupational people can go over there to do the service. Or sometimes you may have to shut down the base station to do the maintenance. Okay, now we talk about real risk in our life. I have found this several years ago, but I don't see that anymore. So I try to ask these guys, what happened to your chart? They didn't answer me. I don't know what's the reason they take it off. But this is a real risk in life. And this is in terms of death rate. Well, death is a very ultimate endpoint, right? If you die, you cannot say anything. So death is the ultimate endpoint for risk. And here is active smoking. This is for Americans, okay? This is the American Council of Science and Health. So different size of rings means the different death rates. And you can see here, active smoking, adult, obesity, unintentional injury, medical errors, alcohol, internet, passive smoking, firearms, sexual behaviors, blah, 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 blah. Where's ionizing radiation? Okay, ionizing radiation and ultraviolet radiation. You open that up, there's no ionizing RF in there because it's not the ionizing radiation. So it's not in there, it's not in here. So the last one over there, the smallest, is terrorism. Every time you go to the airport, because some possibility of a terrorism. But how many people really have that? Very small possibility. So we have to put all these things in perspective in our real life. And here I found last year I went to India on the airplane. I saw this newspaper in the Southern China Airline. And it's a newspaper. Saw this guy using his cell phone, looking at his cell phone, his hand bent over, upstairs, they were boom, well, dead. So other people come to bend to their necks to respect him. So this is a real danger. And definitely there are any effects. I will say yes, definitely are big effects from using this. People taxing all that, people, you can driving, you can hit the people. And here's zombies, everybody looking at their phone and falling through the lake, or crack their legs and all that. That definitely have an effect. And here is a picture showing 100 years ago people spoke opiums on the couch. And here now we have 100 people playing games, doing social connection. And all the kids never play with each other anymore. They don't go out to exercise. They keep playing these video games. But the question is not due to RF. It's due to improper use of the device. Where people getting divorced because the husband keep playing games or have extramural effects with talking with girlfriend, with WeChat or something with another woman. So it's causing a lot of effects in our social behavior and health. But it's not due to RF. Okay, so to summarize what we learned from here. At the very beginning, so microwave radiation is very dangerous. The correct answer is yes. When it's very high intensity, it can cook you. If you have high intensity like in the microwave oven, it's really it's dangerous, but it's very high intensity. We don't have enough understanding. We studied for 70 years. How many more years you want to study? Okay, many reports show non-thermal effect. I said they are either non-repeatable or they cannot show it can have any health effects. And that's the general from all these expert reviews. And it can cause cancer and other diseases. There's no definite proof of that. There's no mechanism can other than heating is the explanation can be the possible effects. And the water standard is not protective, but worldwide the 69 reports all say they are protective enough. And do we need a precautionary measure to be safe than sorry? Well, we already have large safety factors built in there. You don't need to give yourself more extra margins for that. So, Simon said want to show some of these ridiculous products. And everything is in China, they have people because of one-child policy. Now it's two-child now. And before it's all one baby, so you have to be careful, protect, if you work on the computer or, have microwave oven nearby or cell phone, you have to protect your baby. So, if you cover that, actually the baby getting hot in there. And here you want to show this measurement, you can measure everywhere, see where you have a high radiation, so you don't have to be safe. And in India, they have sell this anti-radiation paint. You paint your walls with this metallic paint, and they have a metallic window shield to have block the radiation from the base station from outside. And then if you block too much, your cell phone cannot function. They will sell you a booster in your home to boost your signal up, so you can receive your signal. Okay. And here's you see early time we have this protection tag or some kind of a protect device they put on your sticker on your cell phone to make you safe. I tell you, this is all a bunch of money-making gadget, and this may cost you about 1 cent to make it. They will sell you $19.95. You will buy it. So, you'll be safe. Put on there that can talk longer. But this is totally useless. We have tested several models, and then people want to put their brain, so they have a metallic head for that, and then people wearing the shirt. And even people worry about the electromagnetic from the keyboard. They have this
Actually, CK, the metallic hat is great because it's a good antenna.
And here, if you really have enough money, you can buy almost 900 euros. There's a wood piece to cut down the radiation in your house. So this is something just because people are afraid. And according to a Chinese book, and the fear is the largest human disease. If you are afraid of something, that's really can get you sick. So this is the so-called electrophobia, afraid of electromagnetic stuff, and cause this kind of unnecessary product to be on the market. So put all the pieces of puzzles together. In conclusion, to summarize all this, is radio frequency electromagnetic exposure. Okay, it's really different from the nuclear radiation. And we have 70 years of research shows that only established adverse health effects above 100 kilohertz. Below 100 kilohertz is different. This can be electro-stimulation. But above 100 kilohertz is really due to the thermal effects. The international standard with large safety margins, also the exposure standard, also the assessment center, they are available to provide the protection. And there are a large number of expert groups in the world and health authorities. They show that no health effects have been confirmed below the current international guidelines of exposure standards, such as by ICNIRP or IEEE. The last one is the ordinary exposures are usually very, very low, unless you are a worker have to go to the roof right next to the antenna. But for the ordinary exposures, very low. Those unnecessary worry can cause this so-called nocebo effect. That really can help, can damage your health. It's not good. So it's good for you guys to come here today to hear this. And we want to show you the last picture. And this is the one is firmly attached on the solid ground. And we want to say this: everything we do is based on facts, based on solid evidence. And if you build a house on a beach sand, you know what is going to happen to that house pretty soon. So with that, if you have any question, you can have my slides. If you have any question, you can just write to me at the address there. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But today, we have opened up for, I'm sorry I ran over a little bit of time. But if you have any question you can think of today, please ask me. Thank you very much.